Hello everyone and welcome to a very special lesson from YMA Academy. We are proud to announce the arrival of the very first ever Toon Shader for Redshift, the YMA Toon Shader. This is a robust Toon Shader that seamlessly integrates into your Redshift workflow while giving you powerful controls to create a wide range of toon looks. The full shader is available now at YMA.academy. Pop over to grab it to learn about all of its features. Today Theo will be teaching us how to create a simple Toon Shader setup for Redshift. This will be a stripped down version of the full YMA shader, but we'll get you the basic Toon Shader setup to get you started. If you're short on time, the basic shader will be available for free at YMA.academy. So let's jump in and see what it's all about.
Okay, and let's get ready to basically create our basic Toon Shader. So what I have in here is a plane, an object with some curvature. I have one material applied to it, a dome light and an infinite light. It doesn't matter how it's set up in terms of where the infinite light's pointing. I highly recommend using an infinite light simply because all we care about is the direction of it and also the position, so that really helps in terms of what it looks like. And as you can see, it's just your standard material, nothing special in here. So what we're going to do actually is type in OSL. I'm going to drag that in, and then I'm going to link this to the output, delete the standard material, and you can see it just changed to white. That's correct, it's white here. What we're going to do is replace this text with code. So I'm going to just go over to our Redshift GitHub, and in here there's just a long list of all these different shaders. It's basically code that you compile and will create different looks. I highly recommend to check this out. It's supported by Saul Espinosa. He works at Redshift. He's a really great guy. So essentially what we want to do is come down and find this one, Toon Stylized Pass and Toon Outlines. So I'm just going to open it as a new tab, and I have outlines already. And then you also would like to get halftone. So just open that up as a new tab. You can download these, have them on your drive, or copy and paste the type. I like to just copy it and then paste it in, so I don't need to link it to a file on the directory, because if you used a render farm or something, you'd have to make sure that that works too. Again, this Toon Stylized Pass is created by Benjamin McHale. That's Big Fish, so just big shout out to him. So I have it copied just by clicking those two boxes. In the OSL, I'm going to highlight that and paste, and then press compiled. And you can see it says compiled successfully. And you can see it just updated. So in my parameters, this is essentially the Toon Shader base setup. So right now it looks black because the light direction is 0, 0, 0. If I change this to 1, you can see it just updated. I like to change these colors just to make it a little bit more obvious. So the shadow color, I'm going to make it 40. And the base color, I'm going to make 70. And just like that, you can see what's happened. So right now, the only way to control where that light is through these numbers, which isn't very intuitive. So we're going to create a setup to link that together. So essentially we have our light in our scene, and we want to make sure that that works in here. So I'm going to take the infinite light, drag it in. I literally just held it and dragged it over top. And this is why we're using the Espresso setup. You can't do this currently with the new nodes. And then what we want to do is link this to the OSL shader. So on the red section, I'm just holding down and going to let go over global matrix. If you try to drag that to connect, it won't work. We have to do sort of like a bridge. So there's two nodes that we need. One is a vector multiply, and the other, if you right click just in the shader graph, you have the option of Espresso setups. So there's one specific one that we need. So what I like to do is right click and then start typing matrix. And you can see it's giving me the context as things that only say matrix in it, and we want matrix to vectors. And you can see all we're going to do is drag global matrix to matrix, v3 vector 3 to the input 1. It's multiplying by 0, so we want to change this to -1, -1, -1, and then take this output and put it into the OSL and light settings, light direction. And just like that, it's updated. If I start rotating my light, you can see it's working perfectly. And that's literally it. So now you have a light that can control everything. Your shader will work. You can apply this to different settings, different objects, and you're ready to go. So let's build this up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is add a color layer, and I'm going to make another OSL. Just give myself a little bit more space. Get this to the output and make this the base. Or actually, let's make it the layer one color. That's actually better than the base. And you'll see why in a second. So I'm going to make this white, the base color white. And then now this, I'm going to set to multiply the layer one. The reason I'm doing that is, say you want your just simple setup. Change this to red, everything will work. You can have any color you want, and the shading will update accordingly. I'm going to set that back to white. And now we're going to just build up the other elements. So we just have our light here, we have our sort of shader, our toon shader here, and we're just going to create another OSL. So I'm going back to the GitHub. We have this stylized toon pass. Now I want the toon outlines pass. Again, it's created by Big Fish, Benjamin McHale. And then you can see Mindex in there as well. I'm going to copy this file, copy it, and then highlight this text, paste, compile, it says successful, and I have my parameters. So this is the outline of the elements. So before I go a little bit further, I'm just going to create one more OSL just to bring in the halftone right now, so I don't have to keep going back and forth. So this is the halftone. I'm going to copy that, go into the OSL, highlight again, compile, and it's successful. Go to the parameters, and I have this. So now I have all the building blocks I need. So what I'm going to do next is simply take the outline, connect it to the layer 2 mask, and then in here enable the layer 2. And just like that, you can see I have a black line because it's using this color. Basically, this is a mask through the layer. I think this is better than just trying to connect it directly, so you can have control over the color. Next would be the halftone. So the halftone is a little bit different. We're not going to put it through the color layers. What we're going to do is take this, put it to the OSL of the Toon Shader, and then go to Distortion, Shading Distortion. Now you'll see immediately you get some dots. So what we can do with this is, I'm going to make the size, the scale 10, 10, 10, just so it's a little bit more obvious. And then what you want to do in the actual Toon Shader is, you can see a shading distortion and a shading distortion scale. What you want to do is bring this down a little. Let's try 0.2. And you can sort of see what's happening is it's based on where those dots are, and it'll sort of create that toon look. So I'm gonna change the fuzz on the outline of the halftone from 0.1 to, let's try 1. So all of a sudden you can see the effect change dramatically. And just so you can see what's happening under the hood is, if I put this here, just so you can see what's happening. So that's the fuzz at 1. This is at a 0.1. And then I'm just going to go back to this. So again, now that you have this, you just change this distortion scale, and you can sort of see how the shadow is being broken up. And I think, you know, smaller settings will give you like a really subtle look. Larger settings will really break it up and sort of give you this interesting stylized look as well. And just like that, you know, you have your setup. In the shading and everything, you see everything's grayscale, and like I said, you just change the base color here and everything would update. But what if you wanted something a little bit fancier than this? You don't just want a flat color. You want to change the actual steps of the color with different settings. So what you want to do is add a ramp, bring that in, and then connect it after the Toon Shading OSL, put it to the color, the layer 1. And what this is basically you want to add a couple more nodes. I'm just going to shift select them. Oops. Shift select them. Always a problem. So step. Step. And just like that, you have your Toon Shader set up. So what I'm going to do now is essentially take some of these colors and just tweak them a little bit. So let's do, I don't know, pink, a sort of dark blue, a teal, add another knot, and add an orange. And then I'm just going to slide these around. And you can see I'm not getting all these colors, and the reason why is in the actual OSL of the Toon Shader, there is this stepped and light steps. Basically, this dictates how many knots you'll be able to use. You can see if I use 2 or if I use 1, it basically gives you it gives you 1 extra step of light. So if you want more of those, you basically would increase this, and then it will give you basically 6. You can also turn off the stepped if you like, and then that way, you know, it will still try to use the step and give you sort of an easier way of working. You can turn them on and off as you like. But as you can see, just doing that, I now have full control over this. And then if you put step back on, you can see it did crunch it differently. So just something to take note of is this will dictate how many knots you have if you keep the stepped setting on. So I'm just going to move this over here. And yeah, I like how that looks. And then for the toon outline, again, in the parameters, it's set to 0.5. You can set it to 1 and get a thicker line. And you know, all these settings here will sort of affect the bias of how it will look towards or away from the camera. You can see as I slide this back and forth what happens. The defaults are pretty good, so I would say really just play with the thickness, and depending on what you need to do, maybe you want to play with the curvature and things like that. But these are really sensitive dials, so I think it's something that you want to play with first before you start doing things. So let me change the lighting just a little bit. And then in Redshift, I have this currently set up to untone mapped. I know everything's set to ACES, but for this sort of non-realistic look, I think it's better just to be in untone mapped. It gives you brighter, poppier colors. Also allows you to quickly take, say, like the dome light color pick, and it will match the color perfectly, versus if you're in ACES, that won't work exactly the same way. And then my plane, I'm just going to right click on it and add a RS object, and in the matte section, override, enable, and enable shadows. And just like that, you know, I have sort of a cyc, and I can rotate this around, look around at different angles. So you can see like this is the shadow, because in here I've made this my darkest color. You know, I could flip these around and you can see now that's my darkest. And that would be the look. And just like that, you have your basic, you know, Toon Shader set up. I can go here and change this color. Maybe I like this pink as the outline, make it poppier, or maybe the orange. It could be white, you know, anything you want. So basically, you know, you can sort of see the power of this quick little setup and sort of the tools you get at your disposal. And if I apply this to the plane, you'll see once I turn off the matte, that affects it. Obviously, you may want to change a different setting. So say I say ground and place that here. Let's just delete that since I'm not using it. And then in the ground one, Maybe I don't want an outline. Like there's no need for an outline on it. And then just disable layer 2. And maybe I don't want this distortion scale to be that big. So maybe I set that to 0, and you can see immediately what I get from that look. So if I up it a little bit, I'll get just a little bit of that breakup, and then just rotating the lights, there you go. Okay, so this is going to bring us to the end of the lesson. You can grab this basic shader for free at YMA.academy and check out the full YMA shader features while you are over there. Thank you and see you on the next one.